Top of the morning to you, ladies and gents. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome to 2023, and welcome to the very first episode of a new video series we're doing called Getting Started with Bitcoin, a Beginner's Guide. I'm going to be taking you through every step of the way, starting with what is Bitcoin, how to buy Bitcoin, where to buy it, how to store Bitcoin safely, which devices you can use, things to watch out for, things to avoid, a Q&A session at the end. Every episode, I'm hoping anyways, is going to be between 10 and 20 minutes long. I want to keep things short, concise, easy to digest, and I'm going to be sharing the screen here in just 1 second. I'm a visual learner myself, so I like to see things when I'm trying to process new information, and I'm guessing there's more people out there who are the same way. I'm also going to have this QR code here the entire time. These videos are going to be coming out approximately once a week, so if you want to either skip ahead or if you're stuck somewhere and just need somebody there to essentially hold your hand, make sure you don't make any fatal errors right off the start. You can use this QR code with your phone. You can scan over top of that. It'll take you directly to my calendar. You can book a 15-minute call, a 30-minute call, a whole day, whatever you need. I'm very flexible with the time and the topics of anything you need help with. So make sure to utilize that. I was originally going to put this as a Patreon or like a paid membership type deal, but I decided to just dump it all into YouTube channel for free. I just want to eliminate all the excuses for people, eliminate all the friction. I've seen this firsthand. The last couple of months, I've had a ton of people reach out saying, Jor, I need to learn how to use Bitcoin. How do I buy it? And then don't hear from them again. And I get it. People are busy. People have so much stuff going on in their own lives. The last thing they want to be doing is learning about a new monetary system. But that's why I'm putting it on YouTube, so people can do it at their own pace and for a pretty reasonable price of $0. The first episode here is going to be, I'm calling it the foundation episode. So we're going to be talking about the macro, from a macro lens. What is Bitcoin? Some terminology, some misconceptions, a roadmap, and just something to start off with to hopefully set the tone for the coming episodes. And I'm going to be sharing the screen here in just 1 sec. I'm going to try to do these without editing them. So it's going to be difficult, but there'll be some dead air maybe, but you get what you pay for, they say. This is a tweet I saw a couple weeks ago, and I wanted to start with this because it's important always to start with the end in mind. This is from a guy named Mick Shane, and it really resonated with me because this is pretty much my exact journey that I went on to get to where I'm sitting today. And I don't know if it's been 10,000 hours yet for me, but it's pretty damn close. But after 1 hour, you're going to think that Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency. After 10 hours, you're going to start to see some value in Bitcoin, why people like me are so excited about it. Both as an investment and as a tool for humanity to help get rid of the central banks, to help free us from the debt slavery system that we've grown up in. And after 100 hours, you're going to think Bitcoin is digital gold, which is a pretty common mainstream comparison that they like to make. And I actually like it because Bitcoin and gold do hold a lot of similar characteristics. I believe that Bitcoin is far superior to gold, but we'll get into that later on, of course. And after 1,000 hours, you're going to realize that Bitcoin is not crypto. Even though Bitcoin itself is a cryptocurrency, it's based on a cryptographic protocol, which is essentially just math. It's much different than the rest of the cryptocurrencies like Ethereum, Cardano, Dogecoin. You'll start to understand the difference there. And it honestly took me at least 1,000 hours to see that. When I first got into crypto, I held 0 Bitcoin. And the reason for that is because I had been subconsciously programmed to believe that Bitcoin is bad. Bitcoin's bad for the environment. It's used by criminals. It's a Ponzi scheme. Everything that the media, the governments, central banks have been pushing on us intentionally to try to make us stay away from Bitcoin. So it did take me a long time to figure that out. I'm going to save you 1,000 hours right now and tell you that Bitcoin is much different than the rest of the cryptos, and you should be focusing on Bitcoin right off the get-go. And even hearing that and reading that, you're probably not going to fully understand what that means until you further immerse yourself in Bitcoin and continue learning, continue watching videos like this. And the reason that I want to share this is because over that time, your opinions are going to change, your thoughts are going to change, how you view money is going to change, and all that's going to kind of tie together. And it takes a very long time for that to happen. So just make sure you don't get discouraged. There's a lot to know. There's a lot to understand. Like I said, I got to be close to 10,000 hours a year. It feels like anyways, and I'm still learning new stuff every day. So at the 10,000 hour mark, you'll realize that Bitcoin frees humanity from state control. The last couple of years have been very eye-opening for a lot of people, and myself included. And that's kind of what pointed me into the direction, or led me into the direction of Bitcoin. It's why I started putting so much of my time and energy, is because after seeing what could happen with the governments and with the central bank digital currencies and the digital identity, it scared the shit out of me. And so that's why I started this channel. That's why I started Silverstone Solutions, helping people get into Bitcoin. But it takes a while to fully understand the fact that Bitcoin is not only an investment, but it's a tool to help free humanity from state control, as it says here, or government, or big tech, everything. It's decentralized, and we've been living in a centralized world for a long time now. And I truly believe that Bitcoin is the key to get out of that. One of the most common misconceptions about people who are new to Bitcoin or haven't spent any time learning about Bitcoin is that it's a physical commodity. And I think that there's a couple of reasons for this. The first one is that every time we see an article about Bitcoin, it's usually bashing Bitcoin, but every time there's an article about Bitcoin, we see this picture. It looks like a loonie or a gold coin. And so this is kind of what people believe Bitcoin to be, is like a coin. And the second reason is when we hear the term Bitcoin mining, we immediately think of mining as if something was coming out of the ground, which is all we've known in the past. Gold mining, silver mining, copper, all this mining involves physical work and bringing something out of the earth that you can hold in your hand. And so it's important just to start out by saying Bitcoin is a decentralized digital currency. We'll learn what decentralized means and how important it is to everything here, but Bitcoin is 100% digital. And every time you hear the phrase Bitcoin mining from now on, think of Bitcoin creation. New Bitcoin are being created digitally. And although it requires physical energy to do that, the Bitcoin themselves are 100% digital. So let's look at the mining schedule of Bitcoin. So we can see here, I'm going to try to make sense of this as much as I possibly can. And I'm going to talk about this in the second episode, what is Bitcoin, as well. But I think it's important to understand the fixed supply of Bitcoin. And so here in 2009, when Bitcoin was first created, there was 21 million that had yet to be mined. So this code, this math, it releases new Bitcoin over time based on proof of work. And so back in 2009, there were 21 million Bitcoin yet to be mined. Fast forward 4 years, and 10 million of those Bitcoin had been mined, put into circulation. So there's a ton of new Bitcoin coming onto the market between 2009 and 2013. For the next 4 years, an additional 5 million Bitcoin had been mined or created, put into circulation. And today in 2023, if we scroll over here, there's already been 19.2 million Bitcoin created out of the fixed supply of 21 million. So for the first 13 years, 19.2 million Bitcoin were mined or created. And for the next 120 years, there's only 1.8 million Bitcoin left to be created or mined and put into circulation. If you learn nothing else from this first episode, I want you to understand the benefit, the value of having a fixed asset. Because if we flip this on its head, if we think of our current monetary system, We do not know how many dollars are out there. We do not know how many dollars they will be creating in the future. And there's an infinite amount of dollars that then they can create because it takes zero energy to create them. If there's a new war or a new illness, like we've seen the last 2 years, or sending money to foreign countries for aid, governments can print as much money as they want without our consent, and we have no idea how much they're going to be creating in the future. And so Bitcoin is basically that inverse. So there's a fixed supply, there's a known supply of future Bitcoin being created, and at any given moment, we know exactly how much Bitcoin is in circulation. Pretty important stuff. We've been living in a fiat world or a dollar world for 100 years now. And since 1971, we've been off the gold standard. And at least at that time, the dollar was pegged to something. And if you look at how much the world has changed since 1971, the reason is because they can just create new dollars without any sort of impact or any sort of energy. They can just do it. And we've seen the effects of that. Whereas Bitcoin is a fixed supply. And I think that is going to be the reason why things begin to change in the world. And a big part of that is Satoshi Nakamoto. He, she, they, I'm not talking about pronouns here. I'm talking about, I don't know if it was one person or a group of people. I believe it was a group of people, and we don't know who it was. It's still a mystery to this day. We don't know who created Bitcoin. We know who was involved in it, the people who were kind of in the early days of Bitcoin. But we do not know who Satoshi Nakamoto is. And I see that as a huge benefit. And the reason for that is because there are no political ties. Bitcoin was given to the world as an invention, as an innovation to get rid of the central banks. And Bitcoin does not care if you're Canadian, if you're from China, if you're Black, if you're white, if you have a job, anything. Bitcoin is for everybody. And I think that if we knew who created Bitcoin, there would be a huge segment of the population who automatically wants nothing to do with Bitcoin because of who it's associated with. So not knowing who created Bitcoin, I think, is a key to giving it to the world without any sort of ties. And even Satoshi Nakamoto did not take any Bitcoin. Any Bitcoin that Satoshi Nakamoto or their wallet, they earn Bitcoin through mining. And that's one of the reasons why Bitcoin is much different than the cryptocurrencies out there. Because if I were to create a cryptocurrency today, I could give myself 99% of those cryptocurrencies and let the rest of people have 1% of them, because it doesn't require any energy to create them. Whereas Bitcoin, even the inventor of Bitcoin did not take any Bitcoin when they created it, because you can't just create Bitcoin. You have to mine it. You have to go through the process. It's fair, it's equal, and Bitcoin is for everybody. That's the point of it. So I want to point that out as well. And speaking of dog shit cryptos, FTX, I want to quickly talk about exchanges and the importance of getting your Bitcoin off of the exchanges. I'm sure we've all heard of FTX. It was an exchange. It still is. I don't know. They created their own cryptocurrency out of thin air, blah, blah, blah. But the point here is that people thought that they were transferring money to FTX. They thought that they were buying Bitcoin on this exchange and that they held Bitcoin, that they own Bitcoin. But the truth is, whether you're using FTX, whether you're using ShakePay, Binance, until you actually remove your Bitcoin from those exchanges, they do not belong to you. And we've seen that numerous instances in the past. What I want you to understand about this is that if you had any Bitcoin and FTX, a company like FTX, the world went crazy over it, a bunch of people lost money. But if you had Bitcoin in your own private wallet, you were unaffected by it. The price of Bitcoin went down a couple $1,000, but you didn't lose any of your Bitcoin. It's still yours because you need your private key to access your Bitcoin, to spend it. And unless somebody has that private key, they cannot access that Bitcoin. And that's the main difference between holding your money with an institution or an exchange, whatever it may be. There's third-party risk. Whereas if you keep your Bitcoin yourself, at the end of the day, you're the one responsible for it. And that comes with a price as well. There is risks to holding your own Bitcoin. And I think it's very important to point that out at the start, because it's so important to have a process in place for holding your private keys or your passwords. And we've all heard of the guy who lost $250 million worth of Bitcoin because he locked himself out of his wallet. And believe it or not, most people actually don't lose their Bitcoin because they got hacked or something. It's because they were too careless with their private keys, or they just lost track of where it was. So before we buy Bitcoin, before we start running our own node, whatever it may be, it's important to have a rock solid foundation of processes in place that if something were to happen, you have your private keys, you know where they are, you have a backup of those. And it doesn't matter what else is going on in the world, because you have that in your own private possession and nobody can take that from you if you do it properly. So that's kind of going to be the point of this video series, is to help you with that, help you understand why it's so important, and set up a rock solid process from day one. A lot of people get into Bitcoin. They spend a couple $100, $1,000, and then the Bitcoin goes down in price for 6 months or something, and they kind of they start losing interest in it, and that's when people lose their passwords. And so it's important to realize that you're not going to make $1 million or a new house or a Lamborghini in 6 months. This is a long-term hold, and that's what this next slide is about. And you need to start day one with that in mind. So this chart here, the last year or so, people have been so fixated on the price of Bitcoin. We've seen it go from $69,000 all the way down to $16,000. Seems like a terrible investment. But if you zoom out, you could have purchased one Bitcoin back in 2012, 10 years ago, for $5. And so today they're worth 17 or 16,000 bucks, whatever it is today. And the reason I'm showing you this is because you have to go into this with a long-term view. People, the bad actors in Bitcoin and in crypto and the media, they want to make you believe that it's a get rich quick scheme, because a lot of people buy Bitcoin, they see it go down maybe in price over a couple months, and then they sell it. There's people, they get rid of it because they thought that it was going to increase quickly over time, and it didn't. So they get disappointed, they sell it. And there's people like me and a whole bunch of other people in the Bitcoin community who are waiting to buy those cheap Satoshis or Bitcoins. And so I want you to keep in mind that this is not something that you're going to turn around in 6 months and you're going to have a new house or a new boat. This is something that you want to hold on to for at least 4 or 5 years and beyond in order to fully realize the potential of Bitcoin. And it's important also to point out the fact that if you've held on to your Bitcoin for 4 years, you've never lost any money. And a big part of that is the halving schedule and the decrease in supply. And so you have to go into that with a long-term focus, long-term view. And so when the price goes down, you're ready for that, because it doesn't matter. Your Bitcoin's still in your wallet. It doesn't matter what the price is doing. You still have your Bitcoin. You know the value of it. And that's why you got into it. So this has been the first episode. If you made it this far, congrats. I hope this is going to bring a lot of value to people. The next episode is going to be on what is Bitcoin. Then we're going to be talking about how to buy Bitcoin, how to store Bitcoin, and a lot more to come. So I think this is going to be very valuable to people. If you would agree, if you learned anything today, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video. It's free information, but I have to earn a living somehow, right? So I hope you had a great holiday season. I hope you're as excited about 2023 as I am, and we'll talk to you on the next episode. Bye-bye.